What was the coolest way someone has died? Well, let me introduce you to this dude. This is Ben Solomon, and he was an army dentist for the United States during World War II. Since nobody really needed a dentist in the army, and one of the frontline surgeons got injured, Ben volunteered to be a frontline surgeon in a battle against Japan. During that battle, Ben was treating wounded soldiers inside the medical tent when he suddenly saw 2 Japanese soldiers run inside. The dentist immediately grabbed his bayonet and managed to kill them, but he realized that the defensive line had fallen, and soon the medical tent would be swarmed with Japanese soldiers. Ben immediately told the other medics to evacuate the wounded American soldiers, but he himself stayed behind. When the American soldiers returned to recapture the area around 15 hours later, they found his dead body slumped over a machine gun. However, they also found the bodies of 98 dead Japanese soldiers piled in front of him. Even though he was a dentist with no combat experience, he managed to have one of the greatest last stands in history. Who's the best assassin in history? This is Julio Santana, and you probably won't be able to believe his story. Julio is largely considered to be one of the deadliest hitmen in history, with more than 500 kills attached to his name. What's even more impressive is the fact that he has only gone to jail for 1 day, and he's still a free man as of right now. However, what really makes Julio the best assassin in history is the fact that he actually had some morals. In fact, Julio was actually a very religious man, and he believed that killing was wrong and it was against God. But Julio also believed that God would make certain exceptions for some certain individuals. For that reason, Julio pretty much only accepted jobs that involved killing rapists, communists, and wives that cheated on their husbands. Julio retired from being an assassin at the age of 52, and today he works as a farmer with his wife and family. What was the dumbest way someone has died? Well, that would be this dude. This is Chrysippus, and he was a Greek philosopher who was actually really smart. But even being as smart as he just couldn't avoid a funny and insanely stupid death, because this dude somehow managed to die laughing at his own joke. As it turns out, one day Chrysippus came across a donkey eating a fig, and he thought that was really funny, so he made the joke, "Now give the donkey a drink of pure wine to wash down the figs." That joke just made him laugh so hard that he just couldn't stop laughing, and then eventually he ran out of oxygen and died. I mean, I didn't think the joke was that funny, but I guess he just has elite humor. What was the smartest war tactic of all time? These British pilots during World War II were absolutely genius. They decided to send British pilots to drop these matchbooks into enemy lines. The matchbooks contained clear instructions on how German soldiers could fake illnesses to get sent home from the war. Naturally, tons of tired German soldiers saw this as a free way to get out of the war. However, when the Nazi leaders learned that their soldiers were pretending to be sick, they got really paranoid really quick. So they decided to stop sending soldiers who said they were sick home, which eventually led to soldiers who were actually sick being sent back into combat. This caused illnesses to spread among the German soldiers and severely weakened their army. So not only did this tactic manage to send home some perfectly healthy German soldiers, but it also caused distrust and illness to build among the German army. What was the farthest sniper shot ever? It is absolutely insane, and I guarantee you it is way farther than you would imagine. In 2017, a Canadian elite special forces sniper shot and killed an ISIS militant from an incredible 3,540 meters away. For reference, that's around 11,000 feet and just over a distance of 2 miles. That shot absolutely destroyed the previous record for the longest recorded sniper kill, which was only 8,000 feet and done by a British sniper. Since the Canadian sniper's target was more than 2 miles away, the bullet took more than 10 seconds to reach its destination. What makes this feat even more impressive is the fact that the Canadian sniper was using a TAC-50 sniper rifle, which only has an effective fire range of around 1,800 meters. That's literally half the distance that the Canadian sniper managed to get a kill at. Who was the best sniper? Well, let me tell you about this lad right here. This is Simo Hauha, and he's a 5-foot-tall farmer from Finland. It might not look like it, but he is without a doubt the deadliest sniper in history. For starters, Simo never used a scope for fear that light bouncing off the lens of the scope would give away his position. Instead, Simo resorted to using his trusty iron sights, but even without a scope, he was easily able to hit enemies from 400 to even 500 meters away. During Finland's war with the Soviet Union, Simo accumulated more than 505 confirmed kills, more than any other sniper in history. In fact, he was so deadly that all the Soviet soldiers were terrified of him, and they sent countless airstrikes to try and kill him, but failed miserably. In addition, Simo's patience and cleverness made it nearly impossible for his enemies to spot him. He would wear all white and bury himself in snow in negative 40-degree weather for hours and even days at a time. Simo was eventually sniped in the cheek towards the end of the war, but he survived and lived to the age of 96. He was unable to resume fighting, but his legacy as the greatest sniper in history had already been cemented. What was the biggest bra moment of all time? This bucket literally started a war. In the early 1300s, there were rising tensions between these two cities in Italy, Bologna and Modena. One day, a group of soldiers from Modena decided it would be a great idea to sneak into Bologna to steal this wooden bucket right here. Needless to say, the people of Bologna were not happy, and they felt humiliated that their bucket had been stolen. So, they proceeded to threaten war against Modena unless their bucket was returned. Unfortunately, the people of Modena just kind of laughed off their threat. That ended up being a pretty bad decision because a war soon followed where hundreds of people died because of a conflict over a bucket. That's a pretty big bra moment. Does anyone have close to real life superpowers? Haha, this is Dean Carnassus, and he's literally the definition of built different. He's built different because he was literally born different. He was born with an exponentially high lactate threshold, which basically means he can run without ever getting tired. So technically, he is literally capable of running forever. He literally once ran 350 miles in a row without sleeping for 3 straight nights. And he's run marathons in temperatures as cold as -40 degrees and as hot as 120 degrees. So I guess he's kinda like the Flash, except he's just a bit slower and he has infinite endurance. Best torture method? I'm gonna assume you mean most painful, so let me tell you about scaphism. So the first thing you'd probably want to do is to get a boat and place the torture victim inside. Make sure to strap the victim firmly so that they have no chance of escaping. Then you should cover the top of the boat so that the only things that are protruding are the individual's head, arms, and feet. After the victim is fit nice and snug inside the boat, kinda like a turtle, you should bring them to a swamp and place the boat inside the swampy water. Then you should feed them large amounts of honey and milk until they can't help but get diarrhea. After that, your job is done because nature will take care of the rest. You see, the smell of honey and milk combined with the smell of diarrhea will attract many bugs and creepy crawlies to come lay eggs inside the victim. As the victim cannot move, they will slowly get eaten alive from the inside out by the larva, causing for a very painful, very long, and very gruesome death. This insane method of torture was invented by the ancient Persians and is widely considered to be one of the most painful torture methods of all time. What was the craziest thing that someone survived from? This is Joe Simpson, and I literally guarantee you his survival story will blow your mind. In 1985, Joe and his friend Simon were climbing the Andes Mountains in Peru. More specifically, Joe and Simon wanted to climb the Ciudad Grande, a dangerous 20,000-foot mountain peak with tons of snow and ice. Unfortunately, climbing the Ciudad Grande was considered impossible. In fact, no one had even attempted it before they did because it was literally considered a suicide mission. But they thought they would be the first ones to do it. The duo actually made it up the mountain fine, but it was on the way down that things just started going wrong. On their way down, Joe slipped on a patch of ice and broke his leg, making it nearly impossible for him to walk. So instead, the two decided to use a rope to lower each other down the face of the mountain. This idea worked well for a while, but soon something happened with the rope that left Joe dangling 150 feet above a dark crevice. The two were both badly frostbitten at the time, and Simon had no choice but to cut the rope, dropping his friend in order for him to survive. So Joe was stuck all alone at the bottom of the crevice with hypothermia, a broken leg, and no one to call for help. I just posted part 2 as well, so go check it out on my page. This is part 2 of the craziest survival story. Go check out part 1 if you haven't already. Joe somehow managed to survive the 150-foot fall with no other injuries. And he knew that he couldn't wait for help because his friend Simon probably thought he was dead and was going to leave without him. So with his broken leg and hypothermia, he began to crawl deeper and deeper into the crevice looking for a way out. Fortunately, he was able to find one and he began to slowly crawl back to civilization. For the next 3 days, Joe slowly crawled down the face of the mountain, ignoring the excruciating pain from his broken leg, from his hypothermia, and from his hunger and thirst. He had no food whatsoever and he only could eat a little bit of snow to stay hydrated, but he still managed to crawl 3 straight days to get back to his camp. Incredibly, Joe managed to crawl a total of 5 miles with no food or water, a broken leg, and hypothermia. Both Joe and his friend Simon survived the journey, and today there's a book and a movie made on his amazing experience. What's the most extreme sport ever invented? I don't know for sure, but this sport is definitely up there. This is pancration, and it used to be a popular Olympic sport in Greece. The sport basically involves 2 naked, unarmed men fighting each other until one of them either submits or dies. It's kinda like that ritual fighting scene from the movie Black Panther, except there are no weapons and there are basically no rules. The only thing that actually is against the rules is biting or gouging an opponent's eyes, nose, mouth, or fingers. Needless to say, there are many accounts of pancration fighters getting severely injured or dying during the sport, which is why I think it's one of the most extreme sports of all time. What was the most embarrassing moment in history? Australia literally lost the war to these birds. In 1932, emus, which are a species of large bird, were eating a ton of the farmers' crops in Australia. The farmers, who were actually retired soldiers from World War I, didn't like that. So the farmers went to this dude, Australia's Minister of Defense, and he more or less declared war on the emus. He gave the farmers 2 machine guns, as well as 10,000 bullets and a few expert gunmen to help kill the emus. Unfortunately, Australia just failed to predict that emus are just built different. Not only does it take more than 10 bullets to kill a single emu, they can also run at speeds up to 30 miles per hour. So they began dodging the farmers' bullets like it was nothing. In addition, the emus were really smart as well, and they began to scatter in specific patterns so the farmers could only hunt 1 emu at a time. At the end of the war, the farmers only managed to kill 986 emus out of the 20,000 that were attacking their crops. This event would forever be known as the Great Emu War of 1932, and everyone agrees that the emus won. What was the funniest thing that happened in war? This was. During the Cold War, the United States CIA devised a plan to drop enormous condoms that were labeled medium onto the Soviet army. They figured this would demoralize the Soviet army by proving that American soldiers have and always will have bigger dicks. Unfortunately, the CIA never actually carried this plan out, but it's still pretty hilarious that they came up with such a random idea. What was the best roast? If you're talking about historical figures, literally no one was as savage as this man right here. This is Winston Churchill, and he used to be the former Prime Minister of the UK. Winston Churchill really liked to drink, like it was a pretty bad habit. One time, when he was drunk at a party, a woman came up to him and disapprovingly said, "If I was your wife, I'd poison your coffee." To which Winston Churchill replied, "If I was your husband, I'd drink that coffee." Another time when he was partying, a woman came up to him and told him, "Sir, you are drunk." He replied, "Madam, you are ugly, but tomorrow I shall be sober." I'm not gonna say anything, but wow. What was the biggest fail in all of history? This was, and it's really not even close. For those of you who don't know, this is Mao Zedong, and he used to be the president of China. In 1958, he realized that these cute little birds, sparrows, were actually eating a ton of grain and reducing the food supply in China. So naturally, he did what anyone would do and ordered all sparrows to be killed. That would turn out to be the biggest fail in history. After nearly 2 billion sparrows had been killed, the caterpillar and locust population went berserk because there weren't any sparrows to eat them. And funny enough, the out-of-control insect population started to eat all of the grain. This eventually led to a great famine that ended up killing 36 million Chinese people. Honestly, that's just karma for killing these cute little birds.